I finally opened my eyes. After weeks in a coma, the last thing I expected was to hear life-shattering news from my own daughter. The very house I had poured my soul into, the house I'd lived in for 30 years, where every corner held laughter and tears and memories that can never be replaced, was gone, sold, just like that. I was too weak to sit up, barely able to speak above a whisper. But the words hit me harder than the fall that nearly killed me. And, let me tell you something. Losing that house wasn't even the worst part of this story. What my daughter did next, what she did with the money, well, it still makes my blood boil to even say it out loud. You see, when you're a mother, you believe you know your child inside and out. You believe that bond is unbreakable. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. And this test, it nearly broke us both. So, if you think you know how this ends, trust me you don't. Because the ending to this story, nobody, not even I, could have seen it coming. And by the time you hear it, you'll understand why this is the hardest story I've ever told on the Golden Years Diary. Before we dive into the heart of this story, I want you to understand something about me and about my daughter Sarah. For those of you who are new here, my name is Margaret. I'm 74 years old, and for the past few years, I've been sharing some of the hardest, truest stories from my life here on Golden Years Diary. Most of them have been bittersweet, some filled with joy, others with sorrow, but this one nearly broke me in ways I didn't think were possible. Sarah was my pride and joy. From the time she was little, she made me proud. She was the kind of child every parent dreams of, straight-A student. Never gave me trouble. Always so responsible, so dependable. After her father, my husband, passed away 5 years ago, it was just the two of us, and I thought of us as a team. Just us two against the world. Every time life knocked me down, Sarah was the one who gave me strength to get back up. I believed she would never betray that trust, never turn her back on me. And maybe that's why what came later cut so deep. It all started on March 15th, 2023. I remember the date as clear as day because it changed everything. I was out in the backyard, fussing with the gutters. Now, I know what you're thinking, Margaret. At your age, you had no business climbing a ladder. And you'd be right. But I've always been stubborn. I thought, oh, I'll just take a quick look, tighten this, clear that. Well, that quick look turned into the fall that nearly ended my life. The ladder slipped. I don't remember the moment I hit the ground. Just darkness, then silence. When I woke again, it was in a hospital bed, with tubes and machines and doctors whispering words I could barely make sense of. They told Sarah I'd suffered a traumatic brain injury, that they'd placed me in an induced coma. And the worst part? They told her there was only a 50-50 chance I'd ever wake up again. Now, I want you to hold on to that picture for a moment, because while I was lying there, completely unaware of the world, fighting for my life in the shadows of a coma, my daughter was out there making decisions. Decisions that would change both of our lives forever. Decisions that would destroy something I thought could never be broken. And that brings me to the part of this story that will sound impossible to many of you, but I promise you, it happened. While I was suspended between life and death, Sarah made a choice that shattered our family. Before I tell you what it was, I need you to understand the place where it all began. The house. Because the house wasn't just a building of bricks and wood, it was the heart of our family story. Now, before I tell you the decision Sarah made, you have to understand something about the house. Because this wasn't just any house. Not to me. This was the place where my late husband carried me over the threshold on our wedding night, back in 1973. I can still remember the way he smiled, pretending like I was lighter than a feather, when really he was struggling not to trip over the doorway. That was the start of our life together. It was in that house that Sarah took her very first steps. I can still picture her wobbling from the couch to my outstretched hands, squealing with delight when she made it. We celebrated every birthday in that dining room, every Christmas around that old tree in the corner, The one that leaned just a little to the left no matter how many times I tried to straighten it. That house wasn't just four walls, it was the scrapbook of our family's life. Every scuff on the floor, every nail in the wall, every memory, they all lived there with me. But here's what Sarah knew, and what I hadn't told anyone else. That house wasn't just filled with memories. It was valuable, very valuable. Over the years, its worth had climbed to about $800,000. And to put that into perspective, my father, God rest his soul, bought it for just $23,000 in his day. Everything I had worked for, everything I had hoped to pass on to Sarah someday, was tied up in that house. It was more than shelter. It was security. It was our legacy. Now, because of my age and health, I'd made what I thought was a sensible decision. I gave Sarah power of attorney. Standard stuff, really. In case something happened to me, she could pay the bills, make medical decisions, handle the little details of life while I recovered. It was a simple matter of trust. A mother trusting her daughter. Nothing unusual about that. Or so I thought. What I never imagined, not in my darkest dreams, was that Sarah would handle my affairs in a way that would leave me with nothing. What I never thought was that my daughter, my pride and joy, would see that signature of mine as an open door. A door she was willing to walk right through. Now, before I go on and tell you exactly what she did, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Not a friend, not a coworker, but someone in your own family? Someone you'd have sworn with your whole heart would never hurt you? If you have, I'd like to hear your story in the comments. Because once you hear the rest of this, you'll understand the kind of betrayal I'm talking about. And if you're finding this story as shocking as I lived it, I'd ask you to please hit that like button. It may not seem like much, but it helps me share these hard lessons with more people. People who need to know they aren't alone when life takes an unexpected turn. April 28th, 43 days after the fall. That's the date I'll never forget, because it's the day I opened my eyes again. I remember the harsh brightness of the ICU lights, the smell of antiseptic in the air, the sound of machines beeping steadily beside me. My body felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. And then, through the blur, I saw Sarah. She was sitting there, holding my hand so tightly I could feel her trembling. Tears were running down her face, and the first words she whispered were, "Mom, you're back." The doctors called it a miracle. They told me people with my kind of injury often didn't wake up, or if they did, it could take months or years to recover. But within a week, I was speaking, eating, and even asking the same question over and over again. When can I go home? I wanted nothing more than to sit in my own chair, look out my own kitchen window, and breathe in the comfort of the home that had carried me through 50 years of life. But every time I mentioned going home, Sarah got quiet. Really quiet. She'd change the subject, or she'd say, "Mom, we'll talk about that later." At first, I thought she was just protecting me. The doctors had told her not to burden me with stress too soon. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker, a hesitation, that told me she was hiding something. Something big. Finally, on May 5th, she couldn't hold it back any longer. She sat down on the edge of my hospital bed, her hands twisting in her lap, and with a voice that barely rose above a whisper, she said 5 words that shattered my world. "Mom, I sold the house." At first, I thought I was hallucinating. I honestly believed I was still in that coma, trapped in some cruel nightmare. My mind was spinning so fast I couldn't even form words. Finally, I managed to choke out, "What do you mean? You sold the house?" That's when she pulled out the paperwork. Thick stacks of documents, stamped and signed. Settlement statements, deeds, transfers. Everything legal. Everything finalized. The home I thought I was recovering to The one place I longed for more than anything. It was already gone. Sold. Just like that. I sat there in that hospital bed, numb, staring at those papers, like they were written in a foreign language. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. 30 years of memories. 30 years of sacrifice. 30 years of my life. Reduced to a stack of documents and someone else's signature. When I finally found my voice, I asked her why. Why she would do something so irreversible, so devastating, without even waiting to see if I lived or died. And her reasoning, Mom, the medical bills were going to bankrupt you. I had to liquidate assets to pay for your care. I did what I thought was best. And I'll admit, in that moment, it almost sounded reasonable. I knew how expensive ICU care could be. I knew I hadn't been prepared for weeks of machines and specialists and around-the-clock nursing. So, for a brief second, I thought, maybe she really was trying to protect me. Maybe this was her way of saving me. But then, I saw the numbers. After Sarah's explanation, I told myself, okay, Margaret, breathe. Don't panic. Just look at the numbers. So that's what I did. I asked her for every bill, every receipt, every insurance statement. And when I finally sat down to go through it, the truth hit me like a freight train. The hospital bills. They were 127,000. My insurance had already covered 89,000 of that, which meant the outstanding balance, the amount that truly needed paying, was only 38,000. Now, do you remember what she sold the house for? $780,000. 780,000. Do the math with me, friends. She didn't need to sell my house. She didn't need $750,000 to cover $38,000 in medical bills. Math doesn't lie. Which meant there had to be another reason. Something she wasn't telling me, and I could feel the anger boiling under my skin. Not just because she'd sold the house, but because she was hiding the truth from me. So, I asked her directly, Sarah, where is the rest of the money? And she looked at me with those same nervous eyes and said words I will never forget as long as I live. Mom, I invested it. For us. In Marcus's business venture. Marcus. The name alone made my stomach sink. Marcus, the boyfriend I'd never met. The man she had only been seeing for 4 months. 4 months! That's not enough time to know someone's favorite color, let alone hand them $750,000. And yet, here she was, telling me she had poured my entire life savings into his so-called cryptocurrency mining operation. Now, I may be 74 years old, but I'm not naive. I know enough to know that when someone says the words guaranteed returns and crypto in the same sentence, it's not a business. It's a scam. I sat there, staring at my daughter, wondering who she even was. This responsible, straight-A, rule-following girl who I had raised to be careful with her choices, she was gone. And in her place was someone reckless, someone blinded by love, someone who had just gambled away everything I had built over my lifetime. I want you to imagine this with me. Imagine waking up from a coma. Your body still weak, your mind still trying to piece together reality. You're grateful, so grateful, just to be alive. And then, in that same fragile state, you learn that your only child, the person you trusted most in this entire world, has handed your life's work, your safety, your very legacy, to a man you've never even met. In that moment, I didn't just lose my house. I lost my trust. I lost my sense of security. And, in a way, I lost the daughter I thought I knew. Because how could family, how could my own flesh and blood do something like this? If you've ever been betrayed by family, you know the pain is different. Friends can betray you. Business partners can betray you. But when it's your child, your parent, your sibling, it cuts deeper than money or property ever could. Because it's not just about what they did, it's about the love and the trust you thought was unshakable, suddenly crumbling in your hands. If you felt that kind of heartbreak, I want you to know you are not alone. Drop a heart in the comments if you've ever experienced betrayal from someone close. Sometimes, just knowing we're not the only ones carrying that kind of wound, it helps lighten the load, even just a little. And friends, I wish I could tell you the story ends there. But the truth is, it gets even worse. After Sarah's confession about Marcus, I could have just accepted it. I could have told myself, what's done is done. I could have moved into a small apartment, tried to start over at 74, and just let my daughter face the consequences of her own choices. But something deep in my gut wouldn't let me. You know that little voice that whispers, something isn't right here? Well, mine was screaming. Every detail about Marcus felt off. The too good to be true investment. The rushed decisions. The way Sarah looked guilty, even as she defended him. I couldn't sleep at night without thinking, who is this man my daughter has trusted with everything I worked for? So I made a decision. If Sarah wouldn't protect herself or me, then I had to step in. I hired a private investigator. $500. And let me tell you, it was the best money I ever spent in my life. Within 2 weeks, the truth started to unravel. And the truth, my friends, was uglier than I could have ever imagined. Marcus didn't have a cryptocurrency business. He didn't have a mining operation. He didn't even have a legitimate business license. What he did have was a record thick as a book filled with fraud, scams, and broken promises. We found court filings from 2 different states. We found complaints from women he had charmed, dated, and then drained of their savings with the same story. An investment opportunity that never existed. And when their money was gone, so was Marcus. Vanished. On to the next victim. And if that wasn't enough, the investigator uncovered another layer. A gambling addiction. Casinos. Online betting accounts. Debts in his name and in the names of others. This wasn't a businessman. This was a conman. A professional liar who fed off the hope and love of people desperate to believe in him. But here's the part that truly broke my heart into pieces. Sarah knew. The investigator found text messages between them. Proof that she knew he had lied before, that she had doubts, that even her own heart was warning her. And yet, she stayed. She ignored every red flag because she loved him. She wanted so badly to believe that she could be the one to change him, that their story would be different. One message burned into my mind. She had written, "I know this is risky, but I believe in us. My dad will understand eventually. My dad will understand." As if risking my entire future, my home, my safety, my peace of mind, was something I could just shrug off, because she thought it was for love. I remember the night I confronted her with all of this. I sat her down, laid the evidence in front of her, the court documents, the arrest records, the text messages. And do you know what she said to me? She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mom, I can fix this." Marcus promised he'd pay it back with interest, even with the proof right in front of her. Even with undeniable evidence that he was a fraud, she was still defending him, still choosing him, still choosing to believe in the fantasy he had spun, instead of the mother who had raised her. And in that moment, I realized something painful. Sometimes, love blinds us so completely that even the truth can't break through. And no matter how much we want to save the ones we love, sometimes they don't want to be saved. After I had the truth about Marcus, I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. On one side, I could look away, pretend it had all been a terrible mistake. Let Sarah keep digging herself deeper into a hole she couldn't possibly climb out of. On the other side, I could fight. I could take legal action against my own daughter, drag her into court, challenge her power of attorney, and try to undo the damage. And let me tell you, friends, That was the hardest decision of my 74 years on this earth. Because as a mother, your instinct is to protect your child even from themselves. But what do you do when protecting them means letting them destroy you in the process? Night after night, I lay awake in that small, rented room the rehab center had given me, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same question. Am I willing to lose my daughter in order to save her? I prayed over it. I cried over it. I thought of Sarah as a baby, curled up against my chest, her tiny hand gripping my finger. I thought of her at 16, proudly holding her driver's license, beaming at me with those bright eyes. And I thought of her now, so lost in the lies of a man who had never cared for her the way I did. That's when I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to fight, not just for me, but for her. So, I hired an attorney. We went over every detail of the case. Power of attorney doesn't give someone the right to liquidate major assets unless there's genuine necessity. Covering 38,000 in medical bills by selling a house worth 780,000? That wasn't necessity, that was negligence, if not outright betrayal. My lawyer was confident we had a case, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was hope of getting justice. But before we could even file the papers, something happened that changed everything. Marcus disappeared. Just like that. Vanished into thin air. No phone calls. No forwarding address. His accounts drained. His number disconnected. Along with him went whatever scraps of money were left. The man my daughter had gambled our future on had done what he always did. Taken what he wanted and left her with nothing. And for Sarah, that was the moment the scales finally fell from her eyes. She came to me one night, no makeup, no defenses, just a broken little girl again. She fell into my arms sobbing, saying, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I wanted to believe in him so badly. I thought I was protecting you. And now I've lost everything. Please, please forgive me." And this, my dear friends, is where the story gets complicated. Because the question wasn't whether I could forgive Sarah. Of course I could. She is my daughter, blood of my blood, the little girl I raised and loved for decades. Forgiveness wasn't the hard part. The hard part was asking myself, should I forgive her? Should I let her walk away from this without facing the full weight of what she had done? Would forgiving her too quickly mean she never truly learned the lesson? And I'll be honest with you, I wrestled with that question, like Jacob wrestled with the angel in the Bible. Some nights I thought, no, she needs to feel the pain she caused me. She needs to stand in front of a judge, hear the gavel slam, and realize this isn't a game. Other nights I thought,